Welcome to another round of The Roots, powered by our friends at NoFo Brewing. John Nelson here with you on the SDH Network. And for those that might be tuning in for the first time, The Roots is a program that covers a lot of the stories and a lot of the levels and a lot of the geography that you may not follow on a daily basis when it comes to the sport of soccer. Could be a great story in college, could be a great story in high school, could be a great story in-state, out-of-state, small town, large town, could be on the other side of the ocean. And it could be something new, could be something that's established. And that's what The Roots is for every single time that we are here on the SDH Network. And great to catch up with you as always. This time around, two really cool things, in addition to all the other cool things that we've been getting into, are front and center this time. One has to do with a last dance, and the other has to do with the first time you're called out on the dance floor. And what we get to do this time is catch up with the women's national deaf soccer team. And we get to do that as they get ready for the Deaflympics in Japan, and it is from the 12th to the 25th. And it's an opportunity for the deaf national team to chase after yet another medal and yet another championship representing the United States. And so this season, since beginning play in 2005, 37-0-1 all time. 3 World Deaf Football Championships, 4 Deaflympics Championships, and they officially joined the Soccer Extended National Team program back in 2022. Just to give a bit of an explainer, Deaf Women's National Team includes eligible qualifying players who must have a hearing loss of at least 55 decibels in their better ear. And you can also send interest if you want to play at a high level. There is an opportunity to do so at U.S. Soccer. So this season, wrapping up the 2025 year, they are heading to Fukushima, Japan, to take on Japan, Kenya, Australia, and Great Britain. And they should be on their way, or they should have arrived there now. But once again, 14th, 16th, 18th, and the 22nd. And for us, we get to catch up with one of the members of the current roster who made a large announcement leading into the tournament. Kate Ward is from Atlanta, Georgia, right here in the SDH footprint. We catch up with Kate. She is hanging up her international competition shingle at the end of this tournament. She's putting her cleats off. She's taking her cleats off, leaving them on the pitch for the last time in competition when this tournament is over in Japan. So we get to catch up with Kate and find out what it's like for her to have this last dance. And it's a really interesting conversation that we got to have with her. It's about her time, and it has been a great learning experience for me personally to find out what it's been like for her and what it's been like to see the squad grow as much as it has going forward. And so it's an opportunity for us to catch up on what's going on with the deaf women's national team. And so we get to catch up with them. And Amy Griffin had named the squad about 5 days ago. And so you go from this roster, Kate Ward, Emily Spreeman, Sydney Andrews. They're retiring after the Deaflympics. Head coach Amy Griffin and Joy Fawcett are managing their final tournament in Japan. And so you have Japan, Australia, Great Britain, as the U.S. is chasing after that 5th Deaflympics Gold in Japan. And that starts in a little less than a week. So we get to catch up with Kate Ward before she hopped on a plane and headed over to Japan. That's part of the Roots this week. The other part of the Roots, we go to Boise, Idaho, and we kind of find out what it's like for Nate Miller as he leaves Real Salt Lake and now is the head coach of AC Boise. And we get to catch up with him, find out what he has learned along the way, and this is another opportunity for him who he himself admitted he is a builder. And so it's an opportunity for Nate Miller to be the head coach, and Athletic Club Boise is welcoming Nate to be their new head coach. The new USL League One side, they have set records when it comes to season tickets out of the blocks as they get ready for their first season. They now have their first head coach, Nate Miller, getting ready for USL League One in 2026. So, without any further ado, let's kick things off here in the Roots. And for this, we go to the West Coast, where we caught up with Kate Ward before she hopped on a plane. Once again, one of the U.S. Women's Deaf National Team stars for the longest time She's going to be hanging it up, retiring after the Deaflympics. Here's our conversation with Kate Ward as she chases after a gold medal one last time. My first question for you, Kate, is this. It was announced in the press release for the Deaflympics in Tokyo that this is going to be the end of your international competitions. And from what you've been able to accomplish over time, I mean, we could probably sit here and spend 45 days talking about everything that's gone on in your time with the Deaf national team. When it comes to the time, if you've had time to reflect on it, does it seem like it was yesterday when you started, or does it seem like it was that long ago when you started this road that you've been on here representing the country?
Sure. I mean, I feel like there's been a lot of reflection done in the last few months. I'm retiring at the same time as two of my best friends, so we've had a lot of conversations about it. And I do think in some ways it feels like yesterday, in some ways it doesn't. Time has certainly flown. I've been on the team for 16 years, which right now is more than half my life. And so it's really kind of funny to think about. But, you know, when I first joined the team, we were really under-resourced. US Soccer wasn't funding us. We were asked to bring our training gear to camps. We were paying $5,000 a tournament. And so it's amazing to see the journey of the team. And then I also think I have become a better person, a better teammate because of this team and because I've finally been around role models who were like me. So it has certainly been a long journey, but also a short one at the same time. It flew by.
When you had these discussions with Sydney Andrews, Emily Spreeman about retirement, and the three of you going out in this way, how far back are we talking here, and what were those conversations like? Was it big Italian pasta dinners, or in backyards, or what are we talking about here?
We've talked about it a lot over the years. I'm going to be honest. I thought that so we've always wanted to retire, the three of us together. I thought we were retiring after the last World Cup in 2023. And so I'm like enjoying that last year. We're finally funded by US Soccer. And I'm like, hey guys, isn't this so cool that this is our last hurrah and all these cool things are happening? And they both were like, well, wait, we're going to do Tokyo. And I was like, well, wait a second. I would have too much FOMO if I didn't do it. So we've talked about it a lot. We have big plans, girls trips. We want to do a big retirement weekend and like invite all of the Deaf national team alumni and current players. So we are certainly trying to celebrate our experiences with the team, but then like the experiences of the team as a whole. It's really been incredible. And I'm really happy that I'm able to retire with two people that I admire so much.
And at the same time, it's the last dance for Coach Griffin and for Coach Fawcett. So, I mean, this is a lot of heavy stuff that you guys are having to deal with about right now. I mean, that it's a lot of that core from the history of the last decade is doing this one last dance. I mean, have you thought about all of that whole deal with everybody that's involved?
Yes, I have so much respect for Amy and Joy as human beings, as coaches, as leaders. And when we agreed, the three of us players agreed to do another one, it was also kind of like, well, we'll do it if the coaches are doing it. I think it would be really hard for the three of us to do it without them when we've been on such a journey together. And I do think it's going to be an interesting transition. And I think Amy and Joy have tried to like prepare the team for it in terms of just like giving people more leadership opportunities and trying to continue the legacy of the culture, because I think for many years it's been kind of easy for us, like, right? Like it's sort of just like muscle memory in terms of, okay, we do these things because that's who we are as a team. And I think over the last year to sort of examine, okay, what exactly makes our team special and how can we continue that legacy even when we're gone has been really interesting.
What have you learned about yourself from Amy and Joy? And what have you learned about yourself from Sydney and Emily? And what do you think they've learned from you in return?
That's a deep question. From Amy and Joy, I feel like I have learned a lot about just being all in, just jumping in head first, being incredibly inclusive and welcoming everybody's experiences. I think that they've taught me to laugh at myself. I think that we have really high expectations for our team. And sometimes they're like, hey, like, it's just a game. Like, it's about more than just soccer. I think from Emily and Sid, I have always felt extremely valued and loved and supported. And both of them have a really incredible ability to make the people who are in the room with them feel very valued and heard and listened to. And I think that's really important as leaders to do that as teammates. And so I feel really lucky that they're able to offer that to not only me, but to our other teammates. And we're all different leaders in different ways. So I really appreciate that they're really, really good at some things that I may not be as good at.
Have you thought about legacies or anything like that? I know that I'm asking you this before you're heading into this tournament, but as you're chasing after a fifth Deaflympics Gold, have you thought about legacy even after this is done? You know, I apologize for kind of putting the cart before the horse a little bit, but have you thought about what's going to be left behind by all of you?
Yeah, I mean, I think one thing that, you know, Emily, Sid, and I have talked about a lot with, you know, the other leaders on the team is we want this team to be inclusive for everyone, right? So the entire experience of the deaf community is very different. There's people who grew up like me who wear hearing devices and they have used their voices, spoken English. And then there's people on the other end of the spectrum who you don't use hearing devices and use sign language to communicate. And then there's everybody in between. And, you know, while I was, you know, younger with the team, I think before I was probably ready to lead, I felt like we never really talked about those things. And so we've made it a real goal while we've been, I guess, leaders of the team to make sure that all of those experiences are celebrated. And then we have hard conversations about that. And not only that from a player perspective, but a staff perspective as well. We want everybody to want to work with our team. We want everyone to feel like they're part of our team and part of our success because they are. And there's so much hard work that goes on behind the scenes. We never don't want to be grateful for what we've had because that's been our history. And for a long time, we had to roll up our sleeves and do that ourselves. And so I think if we lose that, if this team ever loses that, it would lose sort of the heart of who we've been.
Have you thought of yourself as being a role model, either in the present tense or the future tense? You know, while you're here, and you mentioned being a part of the inclusive nature of the squad, and then coming back, and I imagine they're going to want you to be involved in some manner, way, shape, or form. But have you thought of yourself as a role model at all?
I think that it's an interesting question because I know what an impact the people who were role models for me, my teammates who were role models for me, what they've had on my life. You know, Laura Yan is one of our team coordinators now, and she used to be a captain of the team, and she is one of the best leaders I've ever sort of worked under. And I would love to have made any sort of impact on someone who's growing up in the same way that I did. It's one of the reasons why, so I work for US Deaf Soccer now. I'm one of the executive directors. And so our job is to create playing opportunities for the deaf and hard of hearing community around the country, from youth to adult, recreational to competitive. We want to create a pipeline for the national team. And so I feel like I can continue to give back to the community in that way. And I've seen young players who have interacted with our team, and it seems like it's completely changed their lives. And I do think you dream differently when you see role models like you. So I would love to say that I have had that impact on anyone.
When you rub off on someone in that way as a role model, and you get to see how that person responds and then in turn shares what they're learning and what they can add to that, and that you continue to build that foundation. What's it like to see the message grow and continue, like from your first conversation with somebody and then they go, oh, I get it now. and then they get to be someone to rely on, and then they add others. What's it like to see the message roll downhill and continue to grow like that?
It was interesting because I'm so fascinated by leadership. I was a college coach for 8 years. I coached mid-major Division I women's soccer teams. I was involved a lot in the leadership development within the teams. I'm back getting my PhD now, studying leadership. So that question to me is really fascinating because I think leadership, you have to cater to each person and the audience that you're trying to reach. And I think it's really incredible to see the players who are younger than us step into these leadership roles and to see them to share the same values that we've always shared. And it makes me feel like I've done my job at least okay, to know that the things that I valued, the team also values, the things that Emily said and I have valued, that Amy and Joy value, will continue when we're gone, because our goal has always been to leave this team in a better place. And so I just, I hope that those values keep getting passed down. And not only that, like obviously team values and team culture are talked about so much, but winning as well, right? Like I hope that they continue to have that success on the field, and I'm sure they will.
What did you learn about yourself in your time at St. Pius that helped you be who you are?
Yeah. First of all, go Golden Lions. I'm a proud Pius alum. I think I learned a lot about servant leadership in my time at Pius, about serving the community and about growing the community. I also think Pius girls soccer has, a winning legacy and a winning history. And Coach Geiger, or Coach Schmidt now, I guess, has been there for a really long time. And she also was someone who extremely competitive, wants to win, but she also had a lot of fun doing it. And so I feel like I was also able to take that with me. And like team culture was also extremely important there. So there's so many things I learned there, but I think first and foremost, I learned about servant leadership.
Well, and I mean, the run that you had back then, I think you could count the number of losses in your career in that 4-year period on two hands. I mean, literally, you'd have to go to that second hand, I think, to get to double-digit losses.
Yep.
How was it for you in that environment? I guess, what did you learn about yourself, where you were having to learn differently? You were learning the same things, but you had to learn it differently. Your intake had to be different, and understanding, I'm sure, had to be a little different. What was it like in that environment that obviously got to be there with you, in addition to understanding about servant leadership? But I imagine it also formulated how you wanted to be as a coach and as someone who could continue to give messages when it came to playing soccer, coaching soccer, and like, how much of a learning experience was that base for you?
Well, first of all, I think, you talk about the experience that I had there on the field. It was amazing in terms of my first year. We finished first in the country for like the polls. So like I started my career as a national champion. And so that was sort of the expectation from there. And so, I mean, what an incredible experience on the field. And I think, one thing I also learned there that I think a lot of people don't necessarily learn until college is like the competitive training environment where you have to earn your spot every day. And a lot of people go into, the college sphere without that. So that's one thing I learned. I think in terms of if, we're talking about my deafness and how I have to learn differently there, I think I was really lucky growing up, and especially at Pius, where I never felt really different. I felt like people accommodated me way more than I ever knew. And that's not something that I really learned until after, or I guess started to understand until after I was in college. But I look back now and just feel really grateful that I never felt like people treated me differently, even though I know they were accommodating me. And my teammates were always really great about that. My coaches were really great about that. My teachers at Pius were great about that. So, yeah, I mean, I think looking back now, when I have a better idea of what it means to navigate the world, the hearing world as a deaf person. I think there's certain, coping mechanisms that every deaf person learns. But, when you're a kid, you don't really think about that.
Well, but I would also think that it gives you additional perspective when you're older and you look back. It gives you a different perspective about things that you can apply to being inclusive when it comes to coaching techniques and having folks understand messaging and all these kinds of things. I think that it adds an extra dimension that a lot of folks may not necessarily get, and it gets to help you in that process too.
Yeah. I think that, there's things I always need to work on as a leader, but something that I've always been proud of is I feel like I'm a good communicator. And that's because I've been in so many situations where I don't have full access to communication. And so from a perspective as a coach to a player, or a captain to a teammate, or a teammate to a teammate, I think it's extremely important that you communicate clearly, and that you also tailor your communication to every player. And so, yeah, I think the communication perspective is one thing. And then I think also, like you said, the welcoming and inclusive perspective, even when we have hearing people come into our team, and now they're in the deaf world, like, I don't want them to feel the way that I sometimes feel in the hearing world. I want them to feel like they belong. And so, a sense of belonging and communication access for everyone is extremely important to not only me, but everyone on the deaf team.
All right, let's talk about the tournament in and of itself. I would be remiss if I didn't talk about the opposition. Right now, it is Japan, Australia, and Great Britain, the first three that are in your way as you're chasing after that 5th gold medal. What has study hall been like getting ready for the tournament of itself, and what are you and the team looking forward to going up against those first three and then going from there?
Yeah, the team was able to travel to Japan last year to, play against Japan. We played against Australia last summer, and we played Great Britain quite a few times over the years. I think what's a little bit difficult about deaf soccer is you go into the tournament and you haven't seen a ton of film on any of the teams. And so as we go through the tournament, we start to see film from games throughout the tournament, which is helpful. So I think there is like an unknown factor to it. So we've been focusing a lot on ourselves and watching like training film and game film, and just sort of reflecting on how we as a team can be better. But yeah, there's some unknowns to it. And I think that, what's interesting about this tournament, and this is a whole other thing and a whole other battle, but there needs to be growth in women's deaf soccer throughout the world. And I think it's a bit of a bummer that the tournament itself is so small. Some of the best teams in the world were left out of this tournament due to just like kind of unfortunate qualifiers, in my opinion. You kind of look at the disparity between the males and females teams, like it's a little bit frustrating. However, we are really excited, and we are feeling pretty confident about the team that we have.
Okay, last question for you, and thanks for hanging out before you hop on a plane and head to Tokyo for the tournament that's taking place between the 12th and the 25th. You are the grand exalted poobah of deaf national team soccer, or just deaf soccer in general. You are the person in charge. You are the person in charge of everything. How would you like to see the next 5 years grow when it comes to the sport, whether we're talking nationally, internationally, whatever way you want to take this? How would you like to see the next half a decade go when it comes to the growth of the sport?
Goodness. Well, first of all, within like the domestic sort of pool, I would love to see our player pool grow. The hard thing about deaf soccer is finding the diamonds in the rough. We have players who are playing EC and LGA who don't know that the deaf team exists, that they qualify for the deaf team. We want those players. So seeing that pipeline happen, and eventually we have youth teams competing at the youth games will be awesome. Something that we're working on at US Deaf Soccer. I would love to see the team itself, the national team, continue to win. They have a couple of big tournaments coming up after we leave, obviously. I would love to see the players who the generations who came after us have incredible careers, and for their retirements to be celebrated in the same ways that ours have, that's kind of new and really kind. And I would love to see international deaf women's soccer grow. I would love to see federations actually invest in deaf soccer like US Soccer has. And that sort of starts from the top down. Like FIFA needs to start paying attention to disability soccer, and start directing their member organizations to at least have programs for it. So going from domestic all the way up to the top, that's how I would love to see it in a dream world.
That's what we're here for, to ask these questions. Kate, as always, it's great to see you. Great to catch up with you.
Yep.
Please be safe. Get over there. Have another fantastic tournament as you're chasing after a record 5th Deaflympics Gold for the U.S. national team. Thanks for dropping by for the conversation. It's always fun to get the education that you give us every single time.
Thank you so much. I really enjoyed the conversation.
And obviously, we'll be keeping track of what's going on with the U.S. women's deaf national team as they are in Tokyo and surrounding area as they get ready to chase after that 5th Deaflympics Gold. We'll keep an eye on that. And thanks to U.S. Soccer for letting us catch up there, Jeff Crandall and everybody there, making sure that we could get that interview before they all hopped on a plane. You're listening to The Roots, powered by our friends at NoFo Brewing. John Nelson here with you on the SDH Network. And now it's the time to go from the West Coast, because someone's hopping on a plane, to what's going to be happening in Boise, Idaho next season in USL League One. AC Boise is online. They are setting records across the board when it comes to season tickets, and interest is off the charts. We know Boise as a college town and the blue turf at Boise State, but now you get to add the green grass that's attached to it. Now, AC Boise coming online. Nate Miller is their first ever head coach, and we caught up with Nate about the why and what he's anticipating going forward. So first off, Coach, I know I'm probably the 9,012th person to wish you congratulations. Congratulations on the new gig up there in Boise.
Thank you. I really appreciate it. Good to be on with you.
Why? Why this time in your career did you think that it was right to be a head coach, regardless of level, and why the Boise gig? What were those two whys all about?
Life works in mysterious ways. Yeah, this will be my third expansion team, and so just maybe some background. Look, I've now coached at every level in this country: college, league, USL League 2, League 1, Championship, MLS, and so during that process, John, you learn a lot about yourself, a lot about what you learn the why. You think early in your career why you coach, and then you go through a lot of experiences and a lot of different journeys. And I know now what I actually love to do, why I coach, and I love to build things. I love to build things from scratch. This will be my third expansion team, like I mentioned, and I've learned a lot throughout all of my experiences. And I didn't know much about Boise as a city, but when they approached me and explained the project, what they're doing there is different. It's unique. It's not normal. When you see a club sell out their season tickets before, 6 months before there's a team, that's different. And so the people who are running this club are serious people. The ownership was a big reason why I'm going there. I think that I've seen a lot of difficult endings to clubs. I've seen the good, the bad, the really ugly. And this is a club that has a long-term mindset. This is a club that understands what it takes to have stable ownership, and that they want to win. And I want to win too. And so I love building clubs. Like I love the whole process of the expansion team, because you get to set culture from the start. You get to set the environment that we want from the start. And then you can build something that's built to last for a long time. And so my experience in the USL in San Diego, for example, was a beautiful one that we got to really build something that we're all really proud of. Unfortunately, that ended not the way we wanted. So yeah, there's so many reasons. And then now after visiting the city, it's not what we thought. It's a very diverse city. It's the fastest growing city in this country. There's so many cool things going on in Boise, and the energy of the people there is different. And so myself, my family, my coaching staff that's coming with me, we're extremely excited.
You mentioned San Diego. Lansing was also a part of that as well when it comes to what you learn about building things. What were some of the larger lessons that you got to carry with you from your time in Lansing and your time in San Diego? I know they ended for different reasons, but what were the lessons that you carried with you forward?
Yeah, and Salt Lake. I've learned so much here with Pablo, and learning what it is to, coach $10 million players and what that looks like. So I think for me, in Lansing, it was early days. It was the first year of League One. And so what I learned from that process is, is how you can build a really special team. And with young guys that are, and you can build a great identity on the field, but if the foundation isn't right from an ownership perspective, and things aren't right behind the scenes, there's no way it's going to last, right? And unfortunately, that's a story in the USL that has to change. It has to change. In San Diego with Landon, I learned, what it looks like to run a club the right way, and what it looks like to be a player-centric club, what it looks like to have a real connection with your supporters, what it looks like to build something sustainable over time, and build from a core group of players that stays together. That's also very unusual in the USL, is to have a core group of players that stays together and does something as a group for a long period of time. And so from all those experiences, I've learned different things, and you learn, so now the benefit is I just have such a clear vision of like what we're going to do, how we're going to do it, when we're going to do it, with, what levers to pull on at what times. And these months right now are so crucial because you only get one chance to get it right, one chance. And so on our home opener, that moment will just be the culmination of a lot of work of a lot of people. And I'm also conscious too, John, that, I'm coming in at the very end when it comes to the soccer side. People in Boise have been building this thing for years. From the very first time they had an idea of having a football club, they're really, really good people, smart people, sharp people who've been building the foundation of it and the nuts and bolts of it for quite a long time.
What did you learn about what soccer means to Boise and that section of the Northwest and the Pacific Northwest in all of your journeys and the virtual conversations and things like that? What did you learn about what soccer means to Boise in that area?
Yeah, so my experience with the Pacific Northwest was more going away to Portland, going away to Seattle, and the soccer vibe there is different than other parts of the country, right? It's what I love about our country is, San Diego vibe of, the chants and the supporter groups is very different from a Portland vibe. And that's cool, which is very different. My first game ever in MLS was in Miami against Messi, and it's very different in that corner. And it's also very different in the New England area. So it's so different. And so I didn't really know what to expect from Boise. I just kept hearing that this is a city that's growing a ton, that's unique. And when I went there, I will say the diverse nature of the city is not what I was expecting coming from Salt Lake City. The huge Basque influence. There's a lot of people that are relocating to Boise. And so it wasn't the type of city I thought. This is a city it's a beautiful city. It's a city that's growing really fast, and they love sports. And there aren't any professional sports there right now. And so it's almost like you create this environment, this petri dish that's perfect for a USL team to go there. And I'm also, one of the huge reasons I wanted to go there and experience the city is it's not a city that wants to stay in League One for long, right? It wants to move up the leagues with everything going on in this league. And I really do believe what's going on in the USL. So yeah, my job is to come in here and respect what the city is all about and who these people are, and help build something that's truly special.
For those that may not know you stylistically, what are your personal anticipations when it comes to the club out there on the field, the style that you want to have in front of a sold out crowd? I know that you want to be on the front foot, and I know you want to be aggressive, but when it comes to the rest of your DNA, how would you describe what you want that product to look like?
Right. So after this question, right, commence the coach speak, the generic. Yeah.
Dollar in the jar. That's how this goes.
Yeah. It's and to me, it's what we actually do, not what we say. But I can say with our background and what we've been able to do in the past, we're going to build a ball dominant team that looks to play dominant football. This is not, I've learned so much that for me, having a team that survives, or a team that waits for the opponent, or having a team that is very pragmatic gives me no joy. And I've never been a part of that. So for me, yes, I think everyone knows we're going to be a high pressing team, a team that plays with a high line and will confront you as close to your goal as possible. And that's an intensity thing. That's an organization thing. We're going to be a team that's very well drilled. On the other side, I believe in having the ball and being dominant with the ball. I think what's important to me, I also know that this sport is entertainment. And when people come to a match, I want them to be like, wow, that was fun. Not just we won 1-0. So for me, having the tempo of the game, I want it to really vibe with what's going on in the stands. I think that that's super important to me. So when I want us to be a team that we're ball dominant, but we play vertically. We play through the opponent. And so it's always about being the protagonist. If I were to define what we're going to be the protagonist. There's teams that wait for you, and there's teams that come for you. We're coming for you. And so that takes training, that takes the right recruitment, which we're working on right now. But that is my joy. That's my passion. That's what I love to do in life. So that's not something that I look on with any trepidation.
So when you are thinking all of this through and you have questions when it comes to, okay, am I going down the right path? Am I doing this the right way? Who is on your speed dial that you can divulge, unless you want to sit there and it's like, yeah, I got folks on my speed dial, but I want to keep them secret. Who's on your speed dial when you have questions about what it's like to be a head coach and the off the field stuff, infrastructure, player development, all those kinds of things? Who do you reference and sit there and go, man, I got a question, and they'll pick up the phone?
Man, I'm so fortunate to have quite a few of these people, and in very different walks of life, like a CEO, coaches, sporting directors. And so when you're starting a club from scratch, you need all of these. Sometimes it's business, sometimes it's managing up, sometimes it's recruitment, sometimes it's, hey, can you connect me with this agent? And so I've been so fortunate. I mean, think of the last two men I've worked with is Pablo Mastrani and Landon Donovan. I mean, these are two like staple U.S. men's national team players. So Landon is someone that knows me really well, has done so much for me. And we have, with 4 years together doing something, you just develop a close relationship, and he's able to open doors, but he sees things from many different angles, from an elite player, from an owner, from a sporting director, from a media perspective, PR. So he's got a wide range of experiences. So does Pablo. Working for Pablo has really helped me sharpen up some specific parts of my game. And then, yeah, there's also other people in the business world that I call who have given me great advice. So yeah, there's quite a few people. And when you start a club, it's not just on the field challenges. There's so many. So yeah, it's a great question. And who I am today, honestly, is, the skeleton of who you are, the kind of the spirit of who you are stays the same, but all the things on the outside that get developed are also just a combination of who's been able to pour into your life and help you. And I feel very fortunate to have a lot of people who've done that.
So when you talk about your own soul that you have when it comes to who you are in the sport, and you mentioned Landon and you mentioned Pablo, what were the first lessons about either coaching or how you carry yourself from both of them that stuck with you that have turned into be a part of that soul of yours?
I think from like what I didn't have as a coach, I've experienced many things myself. I was a head coach at 26 years old. And so I have a lot of experience like coaching. What I didn't have was like an elite playing level, which Landon did. And so the stories he would tell, the conversations we'd have are like a window or an open door into like maybe a world or a mentality of certain players that I didn't really know, And so even an ownership perspective, and kind of like he's able to open a new door to things that like I hadn't experienced. And then, so it's a really great form of advice. With Pablo's in a super like emotional heart on the sleeve leader. And what Pablo showed me was like, what I love about him is he's such an authentic leader to who he is. And so Pablo reinforced something that I know to be true, but he kind of reinforced it, is like, you have to be authentic to who you are and never try to be someone you're not. He does not give a crap about what anyone else thinks. Like, he is who he is. And it was just kind of a daily reinforcement of, when I'm a head coach again, I'm only going to be Nate, always Nate, only ever who Nate Miller is, because when you do that, you're at your best self. You're not trying to copy anyone else or be anyone else. And so, yeah, I've learned so much. And more than anything too, I'll tell you in all honesty, John, I've learned the most from my players. I've learned the feedback after seasons. I ask players what they think. And when you have many of those iterations and you're humble enough to ask your players what they think, I think similar trends start to come out of, these are the areas where I got to keep leaning into and doing an elite job. And these are areas where I want to get better at. And so I think that's something that I really is important to me, is learning from the players that I've coached.
I know that somewhere you've got a to-do list because I know that, and you mentioned it earlier, that just because it's next season, everybody will sit there and go, oh, yeah, it can look at the calendar. Oh, yeah, next season, it's over there someplace. But what folks don't understand is, no, you don't understand. Next season is right there. And it's going to be coming up sooner than you might think. When it comes to this to-do list of yours, it could be on a Google Doc, could be on legal pad, ring binder like we were in high school, could be on those big 6-foot by 8-foot dry erase boards that are off camera as I'm looking at you in your office space. And it's got a bunch of different dry erase markers in different colors and lines and squiggles and, graphs and all this kind of stuff. Where is that to-do list of yours? And what do you think the next thing that you can cross off it is as you get ready to take over in Boise?
Yeah, I've got kind of 3 different buckets. So I have my whiteboards here of recruitment and who are the next calls, and with a lot of data stuff. So I have the recruitment piece, which is my main focus every day. I have kind of more of like a infrastructure. So, all right, what's going on with the building of the stadium, the locker rooms, and like our preseason. So planning out our preseason, right? And then there's the whole other bit, which is a bit more subjective, but like, how are we truly going to build this thing from a cultural perspective? How are we going to drip feed this every day? Who are we going to be? So fortunately, I've already hired all our staff. So I have my people coming. And so that's been done. And now, so there's kind of 3 different buckets that I just described of what we're trying to build every day. And I think sometimes the immediate, like the form phone calls I have right here and a bunch of text messages, like I have to just like shut that down and go like, what is really going to matter in March? And so sometimes, and that's an area I've learned a lot as you grow. It's like, these people need my time, but like, that's not where my time needs to be right now. And so I have a lot of those to-do items, and I've also grown a lot. And I have an assistant who's been with me for a long time, and he's moving with me, and I'm able to delegate a lot of things that I know that, and that's it. You don't do this job alone. You don't live this life alone, and you have to trust your people. And so I've learned how to say, okay, these are really competent people. They're doing this. And I don't even check up on it, because there are like 4 or 5 things that I need to do and more problems I need to solve that will make us elite. And so for me, it's actually not adding to the list, but figuring out how to remove from the list. So the parts of the list I'm doing are the ones that have the biggest levers, if that makes sense. They will move the biggest obstacles in our way.
How difficult is it for someone who is a builder and is as hands-on as you are to develop that mindset of, okay, I need to pull back. I can't have my hands in every single bucket, every single minute of every single day. Otherwise, things aren't going to get done and something may fall through. How difficult was it for you to sit there and understand, I need lieutenants, I need consigliaries to help me out with this process and not do everything myself?
It's a great point. I used to really struggle with it. And, some of it is when you have really competent people around you, it's easier. But I think early in your career, how do I say this? Like, I think when you're really young, like, I think you have this mindset, you get paid for your time. And when you start to gain more experience, really, you get paid for your discretion, and what you do. And so the thing for me is like, yes, it takes some humility and learning from mistakes, but I know what it feels like to be on the other end of it. And when someone really trusts me, like Landon, like Pablo, and with no questions asked, go solve this problem. And I know how motivating that is for me. And so it's just an understanding of, these people are competent. I need to let them do their job, and I get to lean into the area of strength. So for me, before all that, before the delegating, you need to know like where your super strengths are, and then bringing in people whose super strengths are different. And I think after that, it becomes a lot more organic on what you give to other people. Because what I give to other people, I don't enjoy doing anyways. So why would I do it? So it's one of those things where I think it's a combination of knowing yourself, knowing the elite people you hire, and then just having a lot of discipline and humility in what you do. So I've been so fortunate to be on the other side of it. And so now it's very natural for me to say, hey, TD, who's my longtime assistant, I'm not even going to ask you about this. Go solve those 3 problems. And that's a very relieving thing. But it's only possible if that team of people, that group, is really, really close. And it's a real team, not like very non-transactional relationships, like relationships that are developed over long periods of time.
When you look at League One this year, right now, as you and I are talking, round one of the playoffs is out the door. One team had a big upset and has been traveling from one end of the planet to the other, and they're going to do it again. You look at all of these, and I'll use air quotes, and it's probably a dollar in the jar for me, non-traditional soccer markets that you wouldn't necessarily sit there and equate to success when it comes to League One. You're looking at a Knoxville. You're looking at a Chattanooga. Spokane, who I imagine has probably already started running smack on AC Boise, and that's going to be the instant rivalry there. You're looking at Naples, Omaha, Statesboro, Georgia, Portland, Maine, Charlotte, the Inland Empire with AV Alta, Madison, Wisconsin, Greenville, Texoma, and that's turning into Salina in a couple of years, Richmond and Westchester, and now Boise gets added to the mix in addition to some others. What's it like being a part of something that is growing in these non-traditional markets that people wouldn't sit there and associate with the growth of the sport here in the U.S.?
Well, I think that's the key to the growth of the sport is when you say non-traditional, I think every city is a market that should have a team. I mean, when you look at the world in general, like the lifeblood of every soccer pyramid is the local communities.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I think what people think when people think of like football and they think of the Premier League, that's not normal. Like that size and that level of like scale is something the world has never seen, you know? And so I actually think the traditional soccer market should be your local city, and that's it. And we're still a baby country when it comes to this sport. We are in the infant stages, and it's going to take a long time, but you just listed, 15 cities. Like, to me, every single city should be like the lifeblood of that city only, not of anywhere else, just of that city. And every city should be like that. And that's what I do love about the USL is look at games at Portland, Maine, and then you have, and you're going to have a whole different cool vibe in Athletic Club Boise. And so, every market needs to do it differently because this is a very, very unique country. We're a massive country, and the four corners of the country and the middle of the country might as well be different stratospheres as far as how someone thinks in Portland, Maine, in Portland, Maine is very different from someone in Portland, Oregon. I mean, just think of the types of people that are in both of those cities. So for me, like what I love about this is that I think the lifeblood is actually the small cities and the medium-sized cities. So it's but to your point, we're gonna have a lot of travel on our hands too.
Well, and yeah, the natural rivalries that will be availing themselves over time with Sporting Cascades and with Spokane. You get that little three-way dance going on when everybody comes up to full song, and we're looking forward to it as it continues to grow. Yeah. Nate, congratulations on assuming the mantle of the Grand Exalted Poobah there at AC Boise, and we cannot wait to see how things continue to grow and develop. You know that, as I tell everybody that comes on the show and here on the network, you now know where the key is under the mat. You know where the garage door opener is. You ever want to come in and crash and sit there and talk about anything, you've got a home here at SDH. Thanks for dropping by.
Thanks, John. Appreciate it.
Once again, thanks to our friends at AC Boise in USL League One, letting us kind of find out the why when it comes to Nate Miller and AC Boise as they get ready for an exciting time in USL League One next season. The rivalries are going to be there in the Pacific time zone and in the Mountain time zone. You're going to be chasing after Spokane. You're going to be looking at AV Alta. You're going to have Boise as attached to that, and you're going to have Cascades as attached to that too down the line. So that regional hub that we've been talking about with folks in USL League One starting to come to pass in the West, and AC Boise going to be a part of that. Nate Miller on the touchline to be the head coach. That is another go-round of The Roots, powered by our friends at NoFo Brewing. Once again, if you've got a story idea, something that might have fallen by the wayside that you think is cool, let us know. Shoot us an email or follow, and let me know on social media as we chase after everything going on in the roots of the sport of soccer here, not just in the Southeast, not just in the U.S., but around the planet. That's another go-round of The Roots. I'm just John Nelson. Thanks for dropping by the SDH Network. Play it safe, everybody. We'll catch up with you next time as we continue to find out about the roots of soccer.